Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From Cardinals headquarters, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
2018 NFL season, take two. As Larry Fitzgerald joked earlier this week, what happened last week when he was asked about moving on from the Week 1 defeat to the Washington Redskins? Yes, let's hope, MJ, that there is a much better, not effort, but performance and outcome, specifically Sunday in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it is a football Friday right here on Cards Cover 2. Yeah, execution, I'm going to say. They got to execute, and they can't get in the shootout. We've talked about that all week. You don't want to give the Rams extra possessions. You're going to have to go on some long drives, and hopefully, as you mentioned on Wednesday, their best defense may be their offense if they can keep Goff and Gurley on the sidelines.
Yeah, making sure you sustain drives. We'll dive into the matchup here throughout the show. Cards Cover 2. Of course, your questions via social media a little bit later on in the show using the hashtag CardsCover2, using the number 2. But right now, let's take off on this Football Friday. Here is what's ahead on the show. Our running back versus your running back. That's right, David Johnson and Todd Gurley will preview the NFL Network's latest episode of A Football Life. This one is dedicated to former Cardinals quarterback Carson Palmer. We see what's inside the Big Red Vaults, and Brandon Natus joins us with your questions via social media. But first, the news of the day, and we begin with injury news. Defensive tackle Olsen Pierre and right tackle Andre Smith have both been ruled out because of injury. Pierre dealing with a toe, Smith an elbow. That means that John Wetzel will start in place of Smith at right tackle. Wetzel, familiar, he actually almost played as many snaps as did Smith in that Week 1, but this will be Wetzel's 12th start over the last 2 seasons. He made 7 starts at right tackle in 2017.
Yeah, and I thought he held his own in that game. We know that he's got experience. He's a guy that can play 4 different positions. He's bailed this team out over the last couple of years. Now it's a matter of, do they dress 8 linemen? Is it going to be 9? Because now you're going to need an extra blocker out there. And the good news, David Johnson was full today. Obviously, was limited in practice with some back spasms. We got a chance to talk to DJ this afternoon, and he's good to go against the Rams defense. And again, the key matchup we've talked about, interior versus the interior, but also who's going to have the upper hand when it comes to the running back position, Todd Gurley or David Johnson?
3 players listed as questionable: defensive end Marcus Golden, tight end Jermaine Gresham, and linebacker Hassan Reddick. The Golden questionable is interesting. I don't think we expect him to play, although head coach Steve Wilkes, MJ, did say that Golden had, quote, a great week of practice, and then added later on there's a chance that he dresses out. I'd be surprised, but it is good to hear that he went through an entire week, although limited as he was.
Yeah, the good news is he didn't have any setbacks. There were no swellness on the knee, so he was able to practice. He is wearing the knee brace. And, you know, I think one thing that Coach Wilkes said, though, is maybe a situational pass rusher, maybe coming on 3rd down and try to rush the passer. You know how I feel about Gresham and Marcus Golden. Toughness, energy, physicality, they bring it, and maybe they missed that last week. But the good news is if they're not able to go this week, they'll both be game-time decisions according to Wilkes. It looks more and more realistic that it could be in action against the Chicago Bears at home.
And Week 3, so just the next week, maybe not this week. And as you mentioned, David Johnson, all good, showed up on the injury report with a back issue, and people a little worried, but he was hitting the sled very hard on Thursday and was full go on Friday. In fact, told the media after practice that his back was just fine. And right now, that is good news because the Cardinals plan to lean on him a lot this week.
Yeah, I got to think, you know, they need to run the ball. I know if you fall behind, you still can't abandon it, at least in the first half. As Mike McCoy pointed out yesterday, they only had 13 offensive snaps and a kneel down. It's tough to get any momentum there. We've talked about rhythm all week. And I did ask Coach Wilkes after practice today, just being in the league, win or lose in Week 1, do you see a big improvement in Week 2? And he said, yes, it's around the league, and that's what hopefully they're expecting from the Arizona Cardinals.
Johnson specifically, just 14 touches in that Sunday loss, 37 rushing yards, 30 receiving yards, but of that 67 total, 28 came on that first drive when the Cardinals looked like they were moving the football. They were forced to punt the ball, but they need, and it's not all on David Johnson, but a good part of this offense, they need him, one, to catch the ball out of the backfield, which he wasn't able to do in week one, and he admitted that he took his eye off the football and instead of securing the football before running upfield. But that is a huge part of this offense, is David Johnson getting back to David Johnson of 2016.
And if you watch some of those plays in the game, I mean, there were some big holes he was able to rip off, get into that second layer. We know DBs don't really want to tackle him, so it's one of those situations where once he gets going, he has the ability to run somebody over. Gurley's going to try to do that. I think David Johnson would rather just try to run around you and then obviously get to that second or third layer. But, you look at David Johnson's career. We know that he had, the great season in 2016. He had over 2,000 yards. Throughout his career, he was averaging 16.6 touches per game. On the other side, Todd Gurley's played 45 games. David Johnson, 34. He's averaging about 20.8 touches, and I'm talking about receiving and rushing.
34 games for Johnson, 34 touchdowns, by the way, in Johnson's career as well. So the Cardinals expecting big things for him in week one. And the Rams could be the same thing for Todd Gurley. He looked very, very good against the Raiders on Monday Night Football, 108 rushing yards plus 39 receiving yards. You're talking about last year's runner-up to the MVP, involved in the number one scoring offense. Todd Gurley, he got paid, as did Johnson, and it's going to be fun to see those two on the field at the same time, or at least on opposite sides of the field. Considering
how the Rams front seven, some of those guys in the front four, they can win one-on-one matches, and sometimes they have a tendency to over-pursue, very similar to the Cardinals. We talk about gap discipline, technique, hands, where are your eyes. So I think we're going to see some screens in this game, and Gurley's one guy that once he gets to the outside, he's able to break tackles. Again, he'll try to run you over. And very similar, we saw a different route tree from David Johnson under Mike McCoy. Bruce Arians was lining him more on the outside for that wheelhouse route. They're looking for a matchup there. I do think we're going to see more of Chase Edmonds, and that's a good thing, meaning they're able to run the football, maybe a good change of pace back. But this is going to come down to line of scrimmage, tackling, and third downs. And if the Cardinals can convert on a few third downs, maybe that leads to some drives, and that keeps the Rams offense on the sidelines.
Well, keep in mind, this is a copycat league.
Yep.
The Rams, Sean McVay, former Redskins offensive coordinator, is going to look at that week one tape. What did Washington do successfully? And he's going to do the exact same thing. And you're basically what you're doing is you're replacing Todd Gurley, or you're replacing Adrian Peterson and Chris Thompson with Todd Gurley, who's a much better running back. So the Cardinals know what's ahead, but knowing and stopping are two different things.
Yeah, the Cardinals really don't have a third down back, and the Rams don't have a third down back. Now, obviously, Adrian Peterson's still learning the playbook, more of a first and second down back. And then Chris Thompson, he just looks so fast on that field. So, again, you're going to have to somehow contain Gurley. You don't want him getting 6, 7, 8 yards on first down. Now they're sitting at second and 2, second and 3. McVay is an aggressive play caller. He will throw the ball down the field because now it's a manageable 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. So it's going to be interesting to see. You got to keep guys in front of you. We've talked about how they threw the ball down the field to Brandon Cooks, got 89 yards in pass interference penalties. You can't give up those big plays. You can't give up chunk yards in this game. Otherwise, you're going to be trailing.
David Johnson, Todd Gurley, the matchup to watch on Sunday. Here is Cardinals head coach Steve Wilks on the two running backs on Sunday.
Well, let me address, Gurley first. Everything they do, I think, starts and stops with him. Phenomenal player, 3-down back, can do it in between the tackles, take it outside. He's very phenomenal in the passing game. And when you look at him, I'm looking at David Johnson. So, yes, to answer your question, I feel like we have the same capabilities with the same kind of guy.
You see some of the same similarities? Or, if I had to ask you to separate the two as far as the differences, the biggest difference between a David Johnson and a Todd Gurley?
And this is not a slight on David Johnson. I think Gurley's more of a physical running back. I think David Johnson's a better pass-catching wide receiver coming out of the backfield.
Of course, you'd be happy to have either of
I'm
those
nitpicking,
guys.
really.
And you throw in Le'Veon Bell, and you got three of the top running backs in the league as far as being able to do both the run and the catch.
Yeah, and I'm glad Coach mentioned that they're 3-down backs. They don't come off the field, and that's the beauty of Le'Veon Bell, Shady McCoy, David Johnson, Todd Gurley. There's other backs in the league that can do that, where other teams like Leonard Fournette, he comes off on third down. They go to T.J. Yeldon. So they don't have a third down back, but that's why David Johnson got the money he did, and he's the bell cow in the offense.
Well, we heard from Coach Wilkes. Let's hear from Coach McVay about these two running backs. McVay speaking on a conference call earlier this week with local media.
When you talk about both Todd and David, these are dynamic backs that are complete backs. There's no way that you're limited in the way that you can utilize these guys. They can play in the backfield. They can catch the ball out of the backfield. They can catch the ball displaced from the core and the slot outside the formation. So I think when you're talking about two players of this caliber with the ability to make things happen that they do when the ball's in their hands, that's the kind of guys that are earning those contracts. And I think for those two players, you couldn't be happier, and especially for Todd, just with the experience and just working with him on a day-to-day basis.
Something's interesting. I think the stat was in week 1, 83% of teams, when they won the coin toss, they deferred. I wonder if you're Steve Wilkes, do you put your defense on the field? Because I just don't think you want to be trailing in this game. How confident is in the offense to recoup from last week? And maybe they take the ball early to try to play with the lead. Now, the good news, if you do defer and you get them out and they're forced to punt, then you open up the second half with the football. So it'll be interesting just some of the situational football that's going to go into this game. But 83% in week 1, teams that won the toss, they deferred to the second half.
Well, so far as Coach Wilkes, preseason, regular season, Cardinals win the toss, they've actually
What would you
deferred.
do?
I would defer, and because you want, and then that's just my feeling, that you want your defense to set the tone. And then I do like piggybacking, trying to get that first or the last score of the second quarter and the first score of the third quarter, and you double dip.
And that's huge. Now, the key is, though, you can't – and I'm not saying they're going to let them go down the field, but you just don't want to have them go on a nice long drive and they put 7 on. Now you're playing a little bit of catch-up. But I do agree with you. If you have the ball in the last 4 or 2 minutes of the half, you can double up, and then you come out of the locker room and you retain the football.
On the running back side, Johnson led the NFL in scrimmage yards in 2016. Gurley did it in 2017. Now the charge is these two defenses trying to stop a Johnson or a Gurley, but focusing specifically on this Rams defense first and foremost. And it is a scary sight, at least to look on paper, just by the names themselves. Aaron Donald, the defensive player of the year. You've got two guys in the secondary are Pro Bowl aspects, and I know you keep pointing to the linebackers are a question mark, but you've got Aaron Donald, you've got Michael Brockers, and Ndamukong Suh, Aqib Talib, Marcus Peters. That's 5 of your 11 that are outstanding players at their respective positions.
Yeah, Corey Litton, he had 13 tackles last week, so that's a guy you got to keep a hat on. But I'm not officially sold on their defensive ends. I think Michael Brockers is going to benefit from having Suh and Donald inside, so he's probably going to draw some one-on-one matchups. And then the linebacker spot, they traded Alex Ogletree, a former second-round pick, but they have 2 shutdown corners. They play press coverage there. It looks like Mark Barron could be down. That could be a game-time decision. So if you watch Jared Cook, he was targeted 19 times on Monday night, 10 catches for 180 yards. And I got to think if Gresham's not able to go, that would be Ricky Seals' assignment. They put so much pressure on their corners and their front 7 where there is some holes in that secondary. Now it's a matter of Bradford being accurate and making those throws, and Ricky Seals-Jones has to catch the football.
3 catches, 6 targets in week 1 for Seals-Jones for 19 yards in the loss to Washington. You mentioned Mark Barron dealing with an ankle injury, did not practice at all this week and officially listed as doubtful on the injury report. Good to hear head coach Steve Wilkes when asked about the interior of the offensive line, because it always comes down to the trenches, that they are going to help out rookie Mason Cole at the center position, but he was quick to say that it's a group effort, all 5 of those guys, plus tight end, plus fullback, to keep that front out of that backfield.
Yeah, I got to think you're going to see the fullback there. He's obviously the safety net. He's the last line of defense on the quarterback. We could see Bradford in a little bit of a shotgun, maybe an RPO. We know he can check out at 3 different plays at the line of scrimmage. We could see Bradford roll out a little bit, and I do think we're going to see Larry Fitzgerald obviously line up on the outside a little bit. Maybe they'll allow Christian Kirk to play in the slot, but Larry's really good coming down and blocking in the run game.
Of course, a lot of the attention is going to be on the Cardinals defense and what they need to do to stop Todd Gurley. They were not successful at stopping the run against Washington. 182 yards rushing. Adrian Peterson accounted for 96. Chris Thompson, 65. They were out physical, didn't tackle the ball well at all. Defensive coordinator Al Holcomb, when we met the media on Thursday, broke down what went wrong on Sunday.
Well, just not playing as Steve talks about according to our DNA. the physicality. The effort was there, the physicality, playing with our hands, and then obviously minimizing the run game and also the tackling aspect of it. It's early in the season, but we have to do a better job of tackling.
How do you address all those concerns when you're facing Todd Gurley and the rest?
Well, I mean, it's a big time challenge this week again, and we've got to address the mistakes, take the things that we didn't do so well last week, and correct those things. We got to accentuate the positives, the good things that we did, and we got to continue to grow and build on that as a defense.
What's going to be when you get Marcus back on the other side?
Well, it's definitely going to give us a boost. He's a dynamic player. He brings a lot of energy. He brings a lot of juice. He has, the ability to hold up and set the edge and also rush the passes. So, can't wait for him to get back. He's got a special skill set. He's athletic. He's fast. He's physical. And we're just, at this point, we're just trying to find the right niche for him in terms of what his fit is in our defense. And, sometimes it's coming off the edge, sometimes it's playing at the second level. So you can move him around because of the skill set and do a variety of things with him, which is a positive. We're a little salty right now. We're a little salty, so we have to come out prepared to play. It's a tremendous challenge in front of us, but a great opportunity for us at the same time.
I like the fact that they're a little salty. Now, we watched last week. Yes, they were able to run between the tackles, but they also got to the edge. So that means Chandler Jones and Benson Mayowa, they have to have seal containment over there. You got to stay in your gap, stay in your lane. But Gurley does have the ability to run through the tackles and bounce it outside, and then obviously try to run down the sidelines. And listen, I hope that Dalton Buchanan, I know he takes this personal. He's a very emotional player. He needs to have a bounce-back game this week. So that's something I'm looking for. Budda Baker, he's playing close to the line of scrimmage. He's got to become a better tackler. We know it's in his DNA, so they got to do a much better job tackling in the open field. And not one guy. Let's see 3 or 4 guys get there and swarm to the ball. But again, we'll see if they try to get to the outside, because that's what the Redskins showed on tape on first and second down, and we know how fast Chris Thompson was on third down.
Bounce back is the key for the entire defense.
Yes.
Inside the Cardinals locker room, Patrick Peterson addressed just that.
A lot of energy through our practice today, and we know how important this game is to us being a division opponent, and it starts with winning your division to get in the postseason. So we know how important this game is, and the guys are ready to go. We're ready to redeem ourselves, because week 1, that wasn't the Arizona Cardinals we wanted to put on tape. But it is on tape, and now we have another opportunity in week 2 to kind of redeem ourselves and kind of get that bad taste out of our mouths.
What was the worst problem with the defense?
Worst problem of the defense? Probably just say, looking at tape, just we wasn't really gap sound. A lot of guys just pickabooing and, not really being what we're supposed to be. But I think we fixed that problem so far. And that's the thing about good teams, First of all, you don't lose 2 weeks in a row. And secondly, you find out what type of character you have on that specific team, meaning defense, to see if the leaders in that room got it corrected. So, but I think we worked extremely hard all week so far, trying to correct the run, make sure, because we know this team, everything starts with the run. Then you got the play-action boot game. Then they try to take the top off the defense. So we have to make sure that we're gap sound this week and don't give up the deep ball.
You've seen a lot of Todd Gurley.
Oh, yeah.
What's the big extra challenge there?
I mean, honestly, we just have to get 11 hats to the ball. Once he has the ball in his hand, once he, have that responsibility of carrying or catching the football, we have to make sure that we rally the ball carrier. We at times it's going to be one-on-one tackles. We understand that. But if that one-on-one matchup don't fall our way, we know we got 10 other guys swarming to the football carrier. So I think the biggest point of emphasis for us on defense to contain Todd is just be like flying missiles, always hitting them and getting 11 hats to the ball. We know this is a really, really good football team, but we really also believe that we're a really good football team. We just have to go out there, do our job, trust in one another, and make sure that we do our assignments to the.
Curious to see how the Cardinals come out and play defense. Obviously, you're going to base it on the first couple of possessions based on formations and how they're lining up. And we know, based on last year, McVay is feeding the play in the speaker in the helmet, and usually they're snapping the ball 20, 19, 18 seconds. Now, when we get to 15, the headset gets cut off, and that's when maybe you're going to see a guy like Al Holcomb play the little chess with Sean McVay. Now, you would assume on paper Peterson's going to cover Brandon Cooks. I don't know if that's the case. Cardinals may play a little bit more zone back there. Cooper Kupp is a very underrated slot receiver. That's Budda Baker's assignment. So we could see Taylor covering Brandon Cooks. And we talked about they're going to take some shots down the field. And if he gets ahead of you, you're probably going to have a pass interference call if they don't connect on the pass.
Cardinals and Rams in Week 2 from the LA Memorial Coliseum. 1:05 is the kickoff. 8:30 in the morning on Sunday is when all the pregame coverage begins on the Arizona Cardinals radio network. This game is the first of 3 over the next 4 games for the Cardinals against the NFC West. As we take a look real fast at what is happening in the division this week, San Francisco hosts Detroit. Both teams lost their Week 1 games. Seattle is at Chicago on Monday Night Football. Both those teams lost their Week 1 matchups, so a chance for San Francisco and Seattle to both get their first wins of the year.
Yeah. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously a lot of hype last year, and he came in and did a nice job. I still think they're a year away, and they've been decimated with injury, starting with their running back, a free agent pickup from the Minnesota Vikings, Jarrett McKinnon. They got injuries on the offensive line. And so I still think they're a year away, but obviously Kyle Shanahan is one of those up-and-coming play callers, and so they're going to try to figure some things out there. And, the Lions, Matthew Stafford took a lot of hits. The Jets went in there with a rookie quarterback and went on the road, so that was impressive there.
And, of course, when you're talking about Seattle, they made some news late this week, signing linebacker Michael Kendricks, who was released by the Browns following charges of insider trading. The only team that was successful in Week 1 in the division, those were the Rams. They won in Oakland, and no one likes playing the Rams more, at least statistically, than Larry Fitzgerald. He has more receptions, 176 against the Rams, than any player in NFL history has against any other single opponent. It is a Fitz Friday, hashtag Fitz Friday. Fitz meets the media.
We got the Rams on Sunday, and that's where our attention is focused. We fixed our corrections on Monday, talked about the things we needed to do to improve, and we're on to one of the best teams in the National Football League. We can't worry about what happened last week. We got Aaron Donald and Dominican Sue and Michael Brockers and Talib and Marcus Peters. I mean, we got to focus on what we got to focus on this week in L.A. Coach Phillips has been coaching the National Football League for about 75 years. I mean, there's nothing he hasn't seen, nothing he hasn't prepared for, and so offensively we got to be kicking all cylinders, playmakers. I mean, you saw Marcus Peters last week, with a pick 6. I mean, that's just the kind of player he is. He's capable of changing the complexity of the game at any moment. Talib is the exact same way. Those guys are so crafty. You can tell they do a lot of homework, a lot of studying on receivers and their tendencies. And, I mean, every time you turn the tape on and the cut-ups, I mean, those guys are making plays. So we got to be precise with our routes, our timing, our depths. I mean, they were ready last week. The opportunities just weren't there. We don't get a lot of plays, especially in that first half. It's hard to get guys involved. I mean, we're not on the field. It's not up to, the coaches. It's up to us as players. We have to take it upon ourselves to improve and make the proper corrections, because at the end of the day, this is our team. The players are going to have to play, and that's what it is. I mean, there's urgency every week. As a professional, you take your job very seriously. This is a great livelihood, one that, we've all dreamed about doing, but the responsibility that comes with that. Well, I think the biggest thing is just not to overreact. I mean, you can't let one of 16 games, affect you and permeate into, the next week's preparation. You have to be able to put stuff behind you. We win this game and we're tied for first place, just like that.
I like to hear that. Now, we touched on it earlier in the week just because they were only targeted a few times and one catch combined between Christian Kirk and Chad Williams. You could see that they want to get those guys involved. We talk about Christian Kirk. If Larry's on the outside a little bit, maybe you can put Kirk in the slot. I like him on the crossing routes. I think Chad Williams is good at yards after catch. I think maybe Trent Sherfield maybe get an opportunity, even though he's been playing on special teams in game 1. So they need other guys to step up. And what I'm looking for is somebody to make an impact play, whether it's a pick 6, whether
and
it's
hopefully early,
yeah, to set the tone and let the Rams play from behind, because there will be a different team, even though they're aggressive play caller. But I don't care who it is, just make an impact play where it could be a game changer, or when we're looking back at the game, usually it comes down to 5 or 6 different plays.
Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki here on Cards Cover 2, coming to you live from the Cardinals facility in Tempe. We do it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3 p.m. Catch us live on azcardinals.com/live video. Find us on YouTube. Just search Cards Cover 2. And if you ever miss a show, just download as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, or tune in. Back to Fitzgerald. Last season, he was featured on the NFL Network's original series of Football Life. This season, it's former Cardinals quarterback Carson Palmer. In fact, it's the first episode in the 8th season of A Football Life. It debuts tonight at 5 p.m. Here's a sneak peek.
Oh, baby! Carson Palmer doing a whirly bird in the pocket. Somehow got out of pressure's way and saw Larry Fitzgerald on the other side of the field.
That was all Carson to be able to escape. You know, he's not the most nimble guy I've ever been around.
Probably my only spin move in my career, maybe.
And he's walking to the sideline for what's probably the biggest play of his football life.
You okay with the shovel, Okie?
And it was almost like a Clint Eastwood moment, like taking a long drag on a cigarette and going, yeah.
And it's a pitch to Fitz running straight ahead into the end zone. The shovel pass for the touchdown of the win. The Cardinals advance in one of the craziest games ever.
Now, the star, obviously, of A Football Life is Carson Palmer, but the star of that specific tease was Mark Dalton, Senior Vice President of Media Relations, who joins us right now here on Cards Cover 2. This is your second appearance in A Football Life, correct?
I lose track is it really? It's one or two.
Now I'm missing the Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
You didn't bring anything with you.
That's not. You don't just like.
We're not quite on that level.
Pull me, Kathy Doll, and you just pull the string and watch them talk. These things you build up to. You get into character. Craig. You don't just on demand.
5 o'clock on Friday, coming up a little bit later on here today, and then we'll re-air several times on the NFL Network. Just first off, because these are very well done, I think. They're
NFL
some of the
films.
best produced, and they speak to a lot of different people. But just before we get into that, are you at all surprised, knowing Palmer as well as you do and behind the scenes better than media or anyone else, because he kept things very, very private, that he allowed this to happen and kind of a peek behind the doors, if you will, of
That's a really good question, Craig, and it's interesting. There's a guy named Steve Trout who works for NFL Films, and he was one of the people that was around us all year when we did All or Nothing. Amazing talent, but I think his biggest talent is his persuasiveness. And he got two guys from our team, Larry Fitzgerald and Carson Palmer, who are reluctant to open the doors a little bit or let people in.
They're very accommodating to media and questions, but as far as away from the field and away from this facility, no, that's their time. That's their life.
So I was surprised on both of them, and I think Steve, to his credit, sold it well, and I think both documentaries are phenomenal. And you're right, NFL Films does such an amazing job. It's called A Football Life for a reason. It's not a football game, a football career, a football player. And in Carson's case, I think that's really, really true. It's his whole, from youth football to growing up in Southern California and his family and high school star, college star, NFL 15-year career. It really takes a deep dive into not a pro career, but a life and what football meant interweaving throughout all of it.
Now, Mark, you've been fortunate enough to see the entire show. We're not going to steal the thunder for our listeners and our fans out there that want to watch it at 5. If not, set your DVR. But there are some interesting things in there. You and I were talking earlier in the week about when he was younger and his father took a job in Connecticut, and Carson wanted to stay on the West Coast. I mean, not to give too much, but what were your observations on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. We didn't get to know Carson until he came here 5 years ago.
Right.
So there was a great deal of insight in growing up and seeing these highlights as a 8, 9, 10-year-old, then into high school. So there's a lot of detail that I think was news to a lot of us, even people that think you know the story really well. And a overarching theme of the piece, I think, is Carson Palmer 15 years in the NFL, and even before that, he was a star in college at a very high-profile university, a big-time program, Heisman Trophy winner, #1 overall pick, and then, like I said, 15 years. So you feel like you knew him. You feel like he was around, or he was. But for whatever reason, he chose to keep a lot of that to himself. He chose not to, give a lot of personality or thought. So a lot of that is people talking about, hey, and him himself talking about maybe what you've seen in the perception you had wasn't real. And even though this person was ubiquitous and around all the time, we probably didn't. He was mischaracterized, miscast, misperceived in a lot of ways. And I think when it's all done, after you finish watching the show, go, wow, I think a lot of people, certainly outside of this market, will say, wow, I didn't know that about Carson and his personality.
Two things that stick out to me, just the fact that he played in L.A., grew up there, was obviously a star. He decided he didn't want to play for the Bengals anymore. But two things that stick out to me, how tough he is and his competitive juices. And maybe it's perception, laid back. You just don't see the fire like you hear about it behind the closed doors. Would you agree with those two assessments?
No question. I think that's a great observation, Mike. I think you'll see that in the show. There's some locker room speeches. There's some teammates and former coaches talking about him. But that one clip you showed of the Packers playoff game, I think really sums up to me who it was. Like, he had all this going on around him, and tumult and controversy in a lot of his career. The exit from Cincinnati and going to the Raiders, and never really seemed bothered by it. Never seemed. And that particular game and that particular clip they showed, you've got this divisional playoff game, and it's gone back and forth, and we come back and we take the lead, and we seem to have the game well in hand, and then Aaron Rodgers throws 2 Hail Marys, including one on the final play of the game, and now University of Phoenix Stadium at that point gets deathly silent, and it's like people getting really tight, and the air has left the building, and now you've got the coin flip, and then you have another coin flip, and then where are we going here with this? And then we get the ball, and that first play, and the place goes from a quiet as a funeral to euphoric on the Carson escapes. He throws to Larry, 75 yards to the 5, but then we call timeout, right? And you think about that particular moment for Carson, who is, the knock, okay, can't win a playoff game. He can't, and in the moment he'll shrink, or whatever the case may be. So we call timeout, and we're at the 5 and about to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat if we get it in. And like I said, he's going for the biggest play of his football life. See, most of us would be anxious, apprehensive, nervous, excited, something. And he's just calm, and Bruce says, what do you think about Shoveloki? And he takes that Gatorade, in his case, and takes the long draw off of it and goes, yeah. Really, that's him.
Fascinating.
Never, everything else is going on around
him. No,
we
can't run that play. We got to try something else.
Wait, what? Shoveloki? No, not at all.
No.
Just, and then we know what happened.
One more thing before we let you go is we're talking with Mark Dalton here, Senior Vice President of Media Relations for the Cardinals, as we preview Carson Palmer, A Football Life, coming up on the NFL Network tonight at 5 o'clock. And, of course, it will re-air several times over the weekend and next week. You'll hear from Palmer, his family, former coaches. Bruce Arians is involved, Larry Fitzgerald, obviously, Michael Bidwell, Steve Keim. But the other aspect in this that we saw a little bit, and you kind of have to really pay attention to Palmer speaking or watch in the locker room, but was his sense of humor and the fact that he was a practical jokester that I don't think a lot of people know about.
And I probably think it's because he didn't let people know. And he wasn't a slapstick, physical comedy kind of guy. He was more very dry, sarcastic, blink and you miss it kind of humor. But, I mean, he was the architect of the bucket challenge and the costumes. And just to hear him explain, even when they were doing it, like the rules of it. And he would talk about, the rules of this made-up game as if they were well-established procedural things. Oh, no. You have to wear it from airport to airport. A home game, you have to be on the field for X number of minutes. So very funny, hugely funny. And we all got great yucks, obviously, out of the bucket challenge and the costumes and all that. But that was his way of keeping it light and a real good reflection of his sense of humor.
And unfortunately, lost more times than we probably hoped that he did his last season here, because there were several Sundays that he was in one outfit or another. And then I think it was Patrick Peterson and another teaser said, yeah, that first couple years he never lost, but that last season they made sure he was losing almost on a weekly basis.
Amazing to me, though, and how few times Patrick Peterson lost.
Right.
An elite cornerback going against 3 NFL quarterbacks, and Patrick was probably the most infrequent non-winner of them all.
I mean, Patrick, golf and football, whatever he does in life, he's very successful.
Yeah, hopefully not radio. Or
no, of course not. He's not going to take our jobs.
Cover 2.
That's true. That is true.
Cover 2.
Cover 3. We'll just add him here on the show. Mark, we appreciate
Good
it.
stuff, Mark.
Again, it's A Football Life with Carson Palmer as we talk a little bit about it here with Mark Dalton, Senior Vice President of Media Relations. Again, 5 p.m. on the NFL Network. And then check your local listings. If you should miss it, it will be replayed a lot. And as MJ said, set your DVR. All right, as we move on here on this Football Friday, time to once again open up the Big Red Vault. And this piece, produced several years ago, we flash back to 2008, the Super Bowl year. It was against the Rams, then playing in St. Louis. Week 14, Cardinals clinched the NFC West.
In 2008, the Cardinals had a chance to clinch the NFC West when they played host to the Rams at University of Phoenix Stadium. The Big Red took control immediately.
Hightower, the tailback, and he'll get it running right, and he's in. Touchdown, Arizona, Tim Hightower.
Tim Hightower's 1-yard touchdown run finished an impressive 10-play, 76-yard opening drive. After a Rams 3-and-out, the Cards added their second touchdown of the day.
Finds Fitzgerald at the 5. He's into the end zone for the touchdown. The 9th touchdown for Larry Fitzgerald, and the Cardinals with a great start trying to clinch the division.
The Rams would counter with a 3-yard touchdown from Mark Bulger to Steven Jackson, cutting the Cardinals' lead to 14-7 early in the second quarter. Quarterback Kurt Warner was on target once again. He passed for 279 yards on the day, 58 of them on this bomb to wide receiver Steve Breston.
Pulled in Breston at the 20, at the 15, tackled at the 10. Great throw by the gloved one.
Following 2 Neil Racker's field goals, the Cardinals built a 20-7 halftime lead. The third quarter belonged to the Cardinals defense. Linebacker Gerald Hayes had a day to remember. Hayes finished the day with 2 forced fumbles, one of which turned directly into points.
Jackson in the backfield, he'll get it again, up the middle, fumble the ball, picked up by Dockett at the 10, at the 5, touchdown Cardinals! Darnell Dockett scoops it up and scores!
Gerald Hayes, the blood farmer, put the buckles on the ball, and the ball came out, and Darnell Dockett was there to pick it up and score.
With the Cardinals holding a 27-7 advantage late in the game, cornerback Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie would slam the door shut with his first career pick 6.
Picked off, Rodgers-Cromartie at the 5, far side 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, Rodgers-Cromartie might go, 40, 30, NFC West champs, here they come, touchdown, DRC!
And DRC can take off the hood and drop the sickle. This one's over. You're the NFC West champions. How good does that feel?
Warner takes the snap. He takes a knee. Cardinal fans, you've been waiting for it. 61 years. You're getting an extra home game. The Arizona Cardinals win the NFC West.
Oh, that's good, baby. NFC West champions.
An electric scene at what is now known as State Farm Stadium. Of course, that season, as fun as it was, going to the Super Bowl, let's remember that was week 14. The Cardinals would lose their next 2 games, including getting blown out in New England before finally winning against Seattle to wrap up the regular season and, of course, making that run to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the key was, though, I mean, they finished, 9-7.
Correct.
Okay, the Falcons had a better record, but they didn't win the division, so the Cardinals are hosting, and then they go to Carolina. And Jake Delhomme is, I don't think he's
6 turnovers.
6 turnovers. And then you're watching the Eagles and Giants game, and the Eagles pull off the upset, and the Cardinals are hosting the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, everything bounced the Cardinals' way in 2008. As we continue here on Cards Cover 2, Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki inviting your questions via social media. Hashtag Cards Cover 2. Time for the Bird Gang to sound off as Brandon Natus, the Cardinals manager of social media, joins us here on this Football Friday. Welcome back.
Happy Friday.
See,
Happy
we enjoyed
Friday.
you so much. After last week, we decided to bring you back.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I get to follow Mark Dalton. So
some big shoes to fill there.
I know. It's
you got to get in the
football
life, and we'll bring you here more often.
I don't know who's a football
Chandler
lifer.
Jones. If he gets in there, you're close to Chandler Jones.
I think if Chandler Jones, they do one on, I probably got a shot there. If he has say, then I probably won't be included. But we could get to the questions instead of trying to guess.
Enough.
Although David Johnson did promise me if he is ever inducted into the Football Hall of Fame that I would get to introduce him. So we'll see if he sticks with that.
I don't know if I buy that.
That was a few years ago. I'll probably forget that one. Cardinals 31 wants to know which defense gets more sacks, Rams or Cardinals?
I'm going to say, as much as it pains me to say, that the Rams will have more sacks, but I'm going to say it's a low number because I think this offensive line knows the challenge in front of them, that Bradford will go down, but it won't be as many times as Derek Carr went down.
If we put the over at 4, you taking the over?
No, I'm taking the under.
Yeah, I would take the under. I think maybe 4. I'd push there.
2 or 3. I mean, look, it's almost impossible these days to keep your quarterback completely upright, but then just the talent that has. But I think there's a challenge that has been put in front of this offensive line, not by anyone else, but by themselves, because they've heard it all week on how good those guys are on the other side.
Well, we know the Cardinals, they're going to like the blitz, and Chandler Jones, to me, is the best premier pass rusher in this game, so I would give the advantage to the Cardinals. Obviously, Goff's not the easiest guy to bring down. Bradford, if he's stationary, then it's probably going to be a little bit easier, but I'll take Chandler Jones because he has the numbers to back up what he did last year.
And what did you see out of Wetzel? Do you think that will affect this at all?
I thought he played well. I mean, he really played the same amount of time as Andre Smith, and they obviously going to have to get some help over there. But the fact that Wetzel started in the past, he could play 4 different positions. I think they feel comfortable with him. Now they're going to have to get some help with the fullback and likely an extra lineman coming in. Hopefully, if Ricky Seals-Jones or Gabe Holmes is over there, they can give him some help. But I don't think there's going to be a huge drop-off at right tackle.
I know we just talked about the outside of the offensive line. Speaking of the interior offensive line now, how do you think the offense is going to deal with Aaron Donald this week?
Well, according to Steve Wilkes on Friday, he mentioned that they're going to get Mason Cole some help. I really like the tandem of Mike Upati at left guard and Justin Pugh. We'll see the fullback there. Maybe Bradford's going to have to be in the shotgun a little bit more, where he can get outside the pocket and make some throws, maybe cut the field in half. So, listen, it's the key matchup in the entire game. We could talk about David Johnson and Brandon Cooks and Larry Fitzgerald and Todd Gurley, but you're going to have to protect Sam Bradford, and I think that they know what's at stake right here. And so for the most part, if they can control it, you're not going to shut them down. You just don't want to get tackled for losses, and you don't want to see your quarterback get hit.
Be sound in your technique, and you don't have anything to worry about.
All right, we'll switch over to Instagram now. I know you guys had mentioned this a little bit earlier. What's going on with David Johnson's back injury? If you want to elaborate a little bit more on that, kind of what he talked about earlier.
He was full go Friday at practice, and didn't seem like it was a factor whatsoever. He said the back was 100%, so I wouldn't put anything into it. You might have tweaked something, but if you're able to go full speed on Friday, you should be fine on Sunday.
I'm more curious about the route tree that he's going to run. We know Arians put it more on the outside. We could see multiple backs in the backfield with David going out, maybe Chase Edmonds or vice versa. Last week he was catching more passes in the middle of the field, and you don't want him to take that pounding throughout the course of the year. So I think there'll be some adjustments there. But obviously he's a dual threat, and he's a guy that's a 3-down back, so I don't see him coming off the field a lot. But I do think they got to get Chase Edmonds in there as a change of pace back.
Now, just talked about David Johnson's injury. The next 2 questions will be in reference to injuries. Marcus Golden. What are the chances he plays this week versus Rams? I know Coach talked about that a little.
I think it's a very slim chance, but it was good to hear Coach say he had a great week of practice, and just the fact that he was on the practice field for all 3 days and able to go back to back to back and not have to, slightly take the foot off the gas, if you will, coming off an ACL injury. But if I was to put money on it, I think he makes his debut at home in week 3.
Yeah, that wouldn't be out of the realm, but it's very tempting if he can come in and be a situational pass rusher. Now you're talking third downs, maybe 20 snaps. I just don't know if you're the head coach where you dress 46 guys and he's only playing a part-time role. You don't want to have any setbacks, so I would agree with Craig. More likely in the Bears game, but hey, they need somebody to get after the passer. It'd be nice to see him and Chandler Jones on the field together.
And last question for you, another injury one. Jermaine Gresham, will he play Sunday, and what kind of impact could he have on the offense? Do you think he's a little underrated and could potentially revive the offense?
I'd love to see him playing on Sunday. In fact, I'd rather have him be on the field. If I was given a choice this week between the two, I'd much rather have Gresham on the field than Golden, just because of what he brings as far as a leadership ability to an offense that it needs to be able to score points. And he certainly, his main thing is, well, David Johnson joked on Friday that Gresham doesn't want to score. He prefers.
Say what?
He prefers to block.
A tight end that doesn't want to
doesn't want to touch the ball, doesn't care about the catches, prefers to block.
What a great guy, considering that you want to spread it around the ball. Listen, I want to get greedy. I want them both out there because I don't want to be redundant to people listening over the last week or so. But these guys bring physicality, they bring toughness, they bring energy, and they were missing that in week 1. Gresham doesn't get the credit for being a blocker. I always go back to when David Johnson had those 16 rushing touchdowns. He was a big part of that. And he likes to trash talk during the game, and I think it gets his teammates up for it where they have his back. So perfect scenario, you'd like to see them both, but realistically, maybe we're looking at the Bears game.
It was funny. David Johnson was even saying that Jermaine Gresham would trash talk to the refs and tell them that they were running the ball. He said they'd tell everyone he loves running the ball.
And he likes to trash talk, but he backs it up.
He's very physical. You've seen him run some guys over. So that's all we have on social media for today.
We'll keep the questions coming in.
Absolutely. Use the hashtag CardsCover2 using the number 2. We do it at the end of every show, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here on Cards Cover 2. You can watch live on azcardinals.com/live video. Find us on YouTube, search Cards Cover 2, and of course you can download it as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, or TuneIn. Got any last words before we exit here, MJ?
No,
words of wisdom.
No, I'm excited.
Okay.
I just don't want to get into a shootout, and hopefully this game's close to the fourth quarter. I know that were humbled last week, and this is a wake-up call, so we'll see what team shows up, but they need to have their A team show up on Sunday.
48 hours away from week 2, and we'll dissect it on Monday here on Cards Cover 2. Special thanks to those behind the scenes, Tim Delaney, Jim Omohundro, Devin Henry, Jeremy Schnell, plus Grant Greeley, Jonathan Hayward, Brandon Natus, Jesse Aranda, and Jackson Sipes. As we leave you here on this Football Friday, let's get everyone hyped and excited for week 2. Cardinals at the LA Rams.
Experts love telling you who's better on paper. Games aren't won on paper. When it comes to division rivalries, you can forget the paper and buckle your seatbelt. For 16 seasons since joining the NFC West, the Cardinals have butted heads with the Rams. 17 wins for us, 15 for them. For now, Los Angeles has earned the right to puff its chest as the defending division champs, and Arizona is eager to have a second chance at a first impression. Maybe a big play on special teams, a timely turnover, or a signature game from its dancing bull will be the catalyst Arizona needs to ignite its season. After all, no time like the present to take a match to that paper, the one that says you have no chance. Cardinals, Rams, Sunday.